Have you ever sat quietly at the kitchen table, your hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, wondering where things went wrong? Maybe there's a family photo nearby, and in it, everyone is smiling, but it feels like a lifetime ago. You haven't spoken to your son or daughter in months or maybe years. You send messages, you reach out, you wait, but there's no answer. And the question that keeps you up at night is, why won't they talk to me? If this sounds even a little bit familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. Thousands of parents in their 60s, 70s, even 80s are quietly struggling with the heartbreak of estrangement from their adult children. It's one of the most painful, confusing, and lonely experiences a parent can go through. You raised them, you loved them, you tried your best, and yet somehow the bond feels broken. So today, let's sit down together and talk about something difficult but important. I want to share with you 5 reasons why some adult children choose not to reconcile after estrangement. Now, this isn't about blame. It's not about pointing fingers or defending one side over the other. It's about understanding. And sometimes, understanding is the first small bridge that helps us reconnect. The truth is, estrangement doesn't come out of nowhere. It usually builds up slowly over time. Little hurts that never healed, misunderstandings that grew into walls, or maybe big events that caused deep wounds. But when a child chooses to step away from their parent, it's rarely out of coldness or cruelty. More often it comes from pain they may not know how to express. So let's talk about the first reason, one that's more common than many parents realize. They don't feel safe. Now, when we think of safety, we tend to think of physical safety. But for many adult children, emotional safety is what matters most. They want to feel like they can be themselves, speak honestly, share their feelings, express their lives without fear of being criticized, dismissed, or judged. If your child felt they couldn't do that with you, even if that was never your intention, that may have led to the distance. Sometimes what we grew up with feels normal. Maybe in your house people didn't talk about their emotions. Maybe you were raised to suck it up or keep the peace. But your child grew up in a different world, a world where feelings are discussed openly, where therapy is more common, where people are encouraged to name their boundaries. So when they try to share something and feel shut down, even if it's just a shrug or a joke to lighten the mood, it can feel to them like a door has been closed. Think back to a time when your child tried to tell you something important. Did they walk away feeling seen or silenced? Sometimes it's the little things. The raised eyebrow, the change of subject, the sentence that starts with "you always" or "you never" that leave the biggest impact. You may have never meant to hurt them. You may have thought you were protecting them, guiding them, helping them grow up strong. But if they felt emotionally unsafe in your presence, like they had to wear a mask to be around you, that sense of danger may have lingered. And when someone doesn't feel safe in a relationship, walking away can feel like the only way to breathe again. Now, let's take that a step further. The second reason many adult children stay distant is because they don't believe anything has changed. Imagine this. Your child builds up the courage to step away, something they've probably wrestled with for months or even years. They finally do it, hoping the distance will create space for healing. And then everything stays the same. No acknowledgement, no change in the way conversations go. Maybe even anger or guilt-tripping from the parent asking, "How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you?" That moment, the one where they hoped something would shift, becomes another wound. Your child might wonder, if I go back, will it just be more of the same? Will I be heard this time, or will I be pulled right back into the same patterns that made me leave? You see, reconciliation isn't just about saying, "Let's move on." It's about doing the real, sometimes uncomfortable work of looking at what went wrong. For many parents, that might mean hearing things that are hard to accept, times when their child felt dismissed, unloved, pressured, or criticized. It might mean saying, "I didn't realize how that made you feel. I'm sorry. I want to do better." That kind of humility can open doors. But if your child doesn't see any signs of reflection or change, they may feel like reconnecting would just be setting themselves up for more pain. They might even think, why should I be the one to fix this? Why should I go back if nothing is different? Here's something many parents don't hear often enough. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. But you do have to be open to listening without defending, to asking questions without demanding answers, and to understanding that reconciliation is a two-way street. Let me share something I heard from a woman in her 60s who was estranged from her daughter. She said, I kept asking her to come home, to call, to talk to me. But I never once asked her what she needed from me to feel safe doing that. That shift from asking for connection to asking how to earn that connection was the moment things began to change. Sometimes the biggest step forward is admitting that something needs to be different and showing your child that you're willing to grow. Let's pause here for a moment. I know some of this might be hard to hear. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed or even defensive. That's okay. That just means you care. You wouldn't still be watching if you didn't. And if there's one thing I want you to remember so far, it's this. Distance doesn't always mean your child hates you. It might just mean they're waiting to feel safe, waiting to see if something, anything, could be different this time. So as we continue this conversation, let's keep that in mind. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about growing. It's about finding the courage to reach across the silence, not with pressure, not with guilt, but with curiosity, openness, and a quiet willingness to listen. So where do we go from here? Let's go a little deeper into something that's often invisible from the outside, but it changes everything. Sometimes the reason your child doesn't come back isn't because they're angry or punishing you or holding a grudge. It's because they've moved on. And I know that might sting. It might feel like a slap to the heart, but hear me out. When someone makes the hard choice to step away from a parent, not just take space, but fully walk away, they usually don't do it lightly. It hurts, there's guilt, there's grief. But in that space, something else often happens. They begin to grow. They find their own voice. They learn new ways to communicate. They develop different relationships, ones that feel easier, calmer, more accepting. They start to feel what it's like to live without the emotional weight they carried at home. And sometimes they realize they like who they're becoming. Maybe they used to freeze up in family conversations. Maybe they walked on eggshells every holiday, bracing themselves for the subtle jabs or disapproval. Maybe they always felt like they were never quite good enough, no matter what they did. But then, out in the world, they meet people who simply accept them, who don't question their choices, who listen, who laugh with them. And for the first time, they feel light. They feel free. So what happens then? Well, they start building a life that doesn't include the stress. And when someone starts to heal like that, it can be hard to go back. Because going back might feel like stepping into an old version of themselves, one they worked so hard to outgrow. It's not always about you. Sometimes it's about them. They've found peace, or something close to it. And even if they still love you, even if they still think about you, they're not sure if the relationship can fit into their new life without dragging them back into old pain. Now I know what you might be thinking. But can't they see I've changed? That I love them? That I want things to be different? Maybe. But from their side, they may not know if it's worth the risk. That's why reconciliation isn't just about saying, come back. It's about showing consistently, patiently, humbly, that there's a new version of the relationship waiting for them, one that respects who they've become, one that gives them space to be themselves, not the child you remember, but the adult they are now. And that brings us to something we don't talk about enough, forgiveness. Now, this is a big one, and honestly, it's a tricky one too. There's a lot of pressure in our culture around forgiveness. We hear it in church, we read it in books, we see it in movies. You have to forgive. You must forgive to heal. Life is short, forgive and move on. And yes, forgiveness can be healing. It can be powerful. But it can't be forced. When someone's been deeply hurt, especially by a parent, forgiveness doesn't happen on command. It's not something they can flip on like a light switch. And when people say, but I didn't mean to hurt them, or I was doing the best I could, those things may be true. but they don't erase the pain that was caused. If your child hasn't forgiven you, it might not mean they're cruel or bitter. It might mean the wounds are still fresh, or maybe the hurt went so deep that they don't know how to begin healing. And here's something hard but honest. Forgiveness isn't owed. It can't be earned by guilt. It can't be demanded. Sometimes a child might still be carrying the weight of things that happened years or even decades ago. Words you don't remember, moments you thought were small, patterns you never even noticed. And when you say, but